my sick leave. That's right. And my checks are just one, and my military just rolling in. It's just wonderful to stay with the program. Quit, get hot and quit. You make me mad.
It's 1:30. The January 21st meeting of the Traffic and Transportation Commission is called to order. Jim Witcher. Present. Dan Martin. Here. Walt Kula. Harvey Harris. Here. James Schuline.
Here.
Jolene Pittman.
Present.
John May. Milford J. Clayton. Here. If there's anyone wishing to speak, if you'd fill out one of the blue forms, Cherry has those. Please limit your talk to 5 minutes. Item number 2, approval of the minutes from the December 20th meeting. Do I have a motion? I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner Pittman, to approve the minutes of the December 20th meeting. Can I have your votes, please? Approved unanimously. Item number 3 is the report on licensed taxi and wrecker services.
Sergeant Mark McCaleb with the Vehicle for Hire Office. This last quarter, we issued 60 new permits. We renewed 54, 24 drivers transferred in between companies. We inspected 48 taxis and vans, with 3 of those failing. All 3 of those came back and passed their second inspection. We inspected 3 limousines. All 3 of those passed. We investigated 7 complaints. 4 of those resulted in some type of enforcement action. 3 of those were unfounded.
Any of the commissioners have any questions for Sergeant Martin? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 4 is the consent docket. Is there anyone wishing to speak for or against an item on the consent docket? Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion for approval. I will second that.
I have a motion to approve the consent docket by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Harris. Further discussion? Could I have your votes, please? Approved unanimously. Thank you. There are no items for individual consideration this time. I believe that's a first. Comments from citizens? Item number 7 are reports and other items.
You've got our monthly report on our activity with respect to administrative approvals of yield signs and parking restrictions. That's there presented for your information. And we have this month a report from the Municipal Counselor's Office on enforcement of 32408, which is an item that's with respect to cabs and parking.
You have my report in front of you. There have been some complaints from cab drivers about them not being able to park in a parking meter while their overhead light is on. And as it currently stands right now, there's a conflict between Chapter 32 and Chapter 56 of the Municipal Code. Chapter 32 prohibits them from parking in a parking meter while their overhead light is on, but Chapter 56 does not prohibit this. So, but wanted to throw it out there for a discussion to see if the commission would like to continue to prohibit them parking at a parking meter, or if they would like to allow it.
Do we make this as a recommendation to the city council? Is that how this is handled, or?
Yeah, once I receive direction from you, I can prepare ordinance amendments, and then they will come back to the Traffic Commission for approval, and then they'll go to City Council for final approval.
Okay. At this time, I'll open it up for discussion.
The Chapter 32 specifically forbids parking at a meter with your light on.
Right.
Does Chapter 56 specifically allow?
No, it doesn't, but it has specific instances where you're not allowed to solicit business, and it doesn't specifically say that you can't solicit by parking with your overhead light on.
So that might be the
So that's where
the recommended amendment would be to add to Chapter 56, you can't have your light on if you're at a parking meter.
Correct.
Is that-
Any of the other?
Look at this and amend it. Should we be looking in other areas as to some way to remedy the problems also, if we have problems?
I'm sorry, I don't understand.
In looking at, recommending whether to approve this or disapprove it or get them back in line with one another, should we look at the other things that's maybe causing the problem as to why they're parking at the meters? Such as
Like what other problems?
Such as doing it, well, apparently they're parking the meters for some purpose.
Okay. Right. Well, we've had complaints that there aren't enough spaces and
Okay.
taxi stands for all the cabs that want to park in Bricktown.
Should we look at that as also while or should we just look at this recommendation and catch that at a later time, or?
Right now, we should probably just look at this recommendation. We can put that on the agenda for next month if we want to discuss, if the commission would like to discuss adding more taxi stands.
Okay.
Does it appear that this is a problem now, a present problem because of construction, and that it won't be a problem once construction is completed?
Well, it's my understanding that it's a current problem. The construction is contributing to the lack of parking. But as it currently stands, there's only one taxi stand in Bricktown.
Oh, okay. I would be concerned that the parking that's available for people who come to Bricktown should be there and not occupied by cabs, which would go along with this ordinance. But and then, as he said, look at, and another request, getting more taxi stands. But I wouldn't want to see them parking in places that people that are coming to Bricktown take up those parking spaces.
Well, and just for your information, it wasn't until within the past year or so that there was a taxi stand opened up in the Bricktown area. Prior to that, there weren't any. There were about 2 in the downtown core area, and there hadn't been any in Bricktown. So this is kind of a new occurrence. But I think at this point in time, the most important thing to do is look at amending these ordinances so you don't have a conflict between Chapter 32 and Chapter 56. And afterwards, it would probably be beneficial maybe to get some feedback from cab companies and the Oklahoma City Police Department to see, under what locations might be considered for expanded taxi stands.
Any further discussion?
I'd be ready, I'm not sure how to word it, but I'd be ready to make a motion that we make this recommendation to modify Chapter 56 to include,
Yeah, in this case, the municipal counselor's office is just seeking direction from the commission as to which way it should proceed, whether it should just leave the ordinances as they are or come back with an ordinance that amends Chapter 32 and Chapter 56 to get rid of this, this conflicting language.
I'd like for you to do that.
Is there anyone that is against doing away with the conflicting language? Then I think it's the consensus of the commission that we would like to have that fixed, and then bring, as the face of Bricktown changes, there will be more cabs, probably will be more cab stands needed, but that can be evaluated separately by those people involved, and leave the parking meters for the visitors to Bricktown.
Okay. So next month, I'll bring in an amendment moving the prohibition to Chapter 56 to take away the confusion. And we can also add an item discussing adding a taxi stand, an additional taxi stand to Bricktown.
Well, I think as far as the addition of an additional taxi stand goes, that can be something that can be considered later, because that would be a totally separate item. I think the ordinance amending 56 and 32 is probably what needs to be looked at first.
I agree. I think especially if the cab companies, we need their input as well as the police department, and there may be some other entities in Bricktown that want to comment on this as well. So we'll get the ordinance fixed first and then address the other part on a separate issue. If we're in agreement, then we'd ask you to take that to wherever it needs to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I don't think, are there any citizens that haven't wished to make comments? If not, we'll go around the shoe. Commissioner Witcher.
I have nothing to report.
Commissioner Martin.
Well, I guess this is more of an observation. Last month, there was a request to remove no parking anytime signs on Lynn Avenue between Northwest 23rd and Northwest 24th, which happens to be my neighborhood. And also I see there's been action on Venice Boulevard where they've erected no parking. I mean, they've requested no parking anytime signs. And what I'm getting at is that had I not been on the commission, the neighborhood would not have known anything about this. The fact that, it goes within the 300 feet of where what they're requesting doesn't deal with the fact that the neighborhood associations, if they exist, when they exist, I believe should be contacted. And I don't know what the vehicle of that would be, but I think that's something that just kind of jumped out at me. Like, I'm reading along and here it is, there's something right in my back door that's happening. It was on the consent docket, would have been voted on, would have been passed, and would have been done, and I wouldn't have known anything about it. I mean, I knew about the problems there, but I wouldn't have been, the association wouldn't have been notified or have any knowledge of it being done.
Yeah, that was a rather unusual situation because at that location, the road actually narrows to about 20 feet. And municipal code allows staff to erect no parking signs on both sides of a street in a situation like that, so it's just a short length. But it's the reason because it's close to an intersection, it has slight curvature, and it was very narrow, and so we've just restricted that parking prohibition to that area. And it was requested by one of the residents adjacent to it. That's how it was brought to our attention.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, he did it the right way, but my point is that, I mean, it could be down the street from him, somebody could request removal of no parking signs that have been there for, years, and everybody's abiding by them. But then, and there was a purpose for them initially, and there was a purpose for these initially, but now they've just. I'm just saying it's so localized that the way we get permission to do something or requests from people that it's just an observation that expanding it, if there is an active neighborhood association, I believe they need to be. I would have loved to have been informed, and had I not, as I said, had I not been on the commission, I would have never known about it till after the fact.
Would it be good to move those top items off the consent docket, put them over where we have to hear each one of them?
I don't think that's solving the problem. I mean, it's the notification issue, because they only, anyway, it's just an observation. I'm not sure how to really, I'm not advocating what the action is to be. It's just an observation that, in this instance, kind of jumped out at me.
Stuart, are the council members from the various wards, are they ever brought up to speed on items that are coming before our commission? Just as part of the normal course of business?
Outside of distributing copies of the agenda to various city departments, I don't believe that these things are sent individually to members of the city council. No.
We don't have any way of, of notifying neighborhood organizations on items that are brought to it. We notify those people who are within 300 feet of an action, I think.
Right, as a courtesy, because our public notification, in order to stay in compliance with the Open Records Act, is we will post the agenda here at City Hall through the city clerk's office, and we will publish our agenda electronically online through the city's website. And that is our form of public notification. That's what's required of us. What we will do in addition to that is we will send out postcards to people within that area. But that's a courtesy notification. That's just something that we do as above and beyond.
Do we have any way of notifying neighborhood organizations of something that's going to take place? And if your neighborhood organization had been notified, would you have been notified?
Yes. Well, I mean, we would have came as members of my neighborhood did, because I knew about it, but had we been notified, we would came just like we did, but basically to say, defend leaving the sign there. And I mean, so, and if they choose, I mean, like I said, it's just more of a, there's a lot of active neighborhood associations, there's a lot of neighborhoods that don't have any. So it will only apply, obviously, to the neighborhood associations that you get, in touch with. But JB would probably be one that could understand that if something was going on in his neighborhood, that they would want to be known, they would want to know. And but the way this transpired, and I'm not faulting anybody, it was done by the clerk, but it just brought up the point that things like these kind of go under the radar. Like I would venture to bet that this Boulevard is the
Mr. Chairman. I was wondering if we couldn't notify Neighborhood Alliance. They have contracts with the city, and they're real in touch with neighborhoods every day. They're very...
Yeah, well, Cherry's indicating that we do send our agenda to Neighborhood Alliance. And, part of our public notification process, especially when it comes to a traffic control change in a residential areas, the applicant's required to circulate a petition, basically canvass an entire area, and we could make it a requirement put it upon the applicant to notify their homeowners association as well. And we'd make sure that we have their completed petitions and proof of some sort that they have sent notification to their homeowners association. Yeah, because an area resident would have a better idea, who's involved in their homeowners association than we would.
Right. And it wouldn't, that way it wouldn't put a burden on Neighborhood Alliance sorting through the whole agenda and figuring out what goes where.
No, they just get the little agenda.
Yeah, they just get the pare down just the agenda. They don't get all the details. But yet, I'm just saying that's a lot. They got to sort down, okay, where is this street? Do they have a neighborhood association? That's a little much to ask.
I wanted to, Stuart, does that put an obligation on your office to, if somebody comes back and says there is no neighborhood association, does that put an obligation on your office to verify that?
I'd have to do some research on that because I'm not sure. We'd have to visit with people at Neighborhood Alliance to find out what kind of listings that they have because, the boundaries for neighborhood associations might get a little fuzzy around the edges, or you might get an application which, falls along a borderline location between two different associations. And if you get one association that favors it and another one that doesn't favor it, it can just become... Right.
Thank you. Commissioner Clayton?
Nothing to add.
Nothing to add. Sergeant Martin? Or Captain Martin? All right. Jolene?
I just have a question for those who may be watching. When will the speed limit be changed on 63rd? I've been practicing, waiting.
We've issued our service request for the signs to be installed. And when they go up, they're going to have a series of red flags attached to the top of them just to draw added attention to the fact that it is a change.
Yeah.
But
I was just wondering what the time frame was for that.
I'll have to contact our traffic operations group and see if I can give you a good date.
People are asking
Okay.
me, and
I'll find that out for you.
okay. Thank you.
Well, that was a very short meeting. I'd like to thank Stuart for all the hard work that they put in. His staff is making our job so much easier. So, wish everyone a happy New Year. Okay. Well, instead, I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. We're adjourned.